one of the first ones we wanted to do was talk about the most important players for each of the 4 teams left in the All-Ireland football semi-finals. So with Kerry, is it as simple as saying it's David Clifford, or is there anyone else who comes into the conversation? Maybe the likes of, I don't know, Tadhg Morley. If he isn't playing that sweeping role, can anyone else do it?
Oh, I think they're definitely, this is not most valuable player. This is most important player. I think there are definitely a couple lads that come into the conversation. If you look at Thomas Sullivan's role at cornerback, has there ever been a more higher scoring cornerback? He offers something to Kerry that, very few other players do. Is he their most important player? He's probably not. But very good point on Tadhg Morley. He plays that role like nobody else probably can. And I'd say, it'd be a fair headache for Jack O'Connor if Tadhg Morley had to come off in the game. Who's going to play that role instead of him? And then the other point they make
is Shawnee Shea.
Shawnee Shea is obviously very, very important too. And
if they didn't have,
if they didn't have him, who's going to kick frees? From 45, 50 yards. Clifford's a very good free taker, obviously, but probably more off the left foot, whereas Shawnee can kick them off the ground from basically anywhere, probably 60 yards in, you'd say. I'm actually going to go for their most important player I'm going to go with someone like Diarmuid O'Connor, being honest with you, because particularly if they're to get over Derry at the weekend, I think midfield is huge. He had a massive game in the quarterfinal against Tyrone. I think they can ill afford for midfield to not be getting something out of their midfielders, something big out of them. And it's great saying Clifford will shoot the lights out, and he will if the ball comes in. But getting your hands on primary ball at midfield is huge. I'm actually going to go with Diarmuid O'Connor, middle of the field for Kerry. And he's been threatening to take over games in the last couple of years. The athleticism he has. He's a real kind of, if you look at, a typical AFL player, a player that would go over from Ireland to play AFL, it would probably be him. And I just think have a player like that on top form gives someone like Clifford the springboard that he needs. Paddy Clifford, honourable mention as well. We talked about him earlier. When he's on form, he brings some amount of people into games. He might not shoot the lights out himself, but he brings some amount of the other forwards into the game. I'm going to go with Diarmuid O'Connor.
Yeah, I think it'd be just too easy to say David Clifford, even though he is the best player and probably the best player in the country anyway. But I go with Shawnee Shea there because I do think he comes up with the clutch moments, and those frees are absolutely huge, especially like last year's All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin. The height, the pressure, kick it into the hill where the wind can be swirling. I put him up there. Now, Derry, and I'm looking at the team sheet here from the quarterfinal and sort of analysing who do I think might be the main guy, because there's an awful lot of guys you could look at. And we'll probably talk about it a little bit more, but the fact that they've added a couple of long-range shooters, and I'm thinking, could Paul Cassidy be a really important player for them at this stage of the year? But I don't think you can get away from Garrett McKinless, the centre-back, because how often does he come up and make that drive and run and either set up a goal or a massive score or get a point himself when it really matters? So I think he has to be right up there at the top of this conversation.
Very good player. Didn't he get a goal against Monaghan earlier on this year, I think, as well? I think
he did,
yeah. I'm going to go with someone in defence as well, actually. I just think for all the, Shane McGuigan maybe shooting the lights out, and maybe Conor Glass is very high up in the conversation now as regards importance, and Brendan Rodgers will be as well. I just love watching Chrissy McKaigue defend, and I just look how he's shut down a stellar list of some of the best forwards in the country. He's just been able to shut them down. And I put it this way: if he shuts down Clifford on Sunday, you'd have to say Derry are going to have a massive chance. Now, that's shutting down Clifford with the help of other lads who are going to be dropping around and helping him too. But a lot of it is going to come down to man-on-man duel at different stages and whether he's able to limit Clifford's damage. So I'm going to go with Chrissy McKaigue. I love, there was some bits of camera kind of footage going around last year of him tracking, I think it was Conor McManus, just to see the mirror movement and just to see how the real elite cornerbacks operate at that level, because it's a fairly cutthroat game. If you're even a half step off, you're in big trouble. But Chrissy McKaigue will be for me for Derry.
Yeah, then Dublin. And I thought the impact of Cormac Costello the last day, like he was really, really important in their performance. Colin Basquel now, he's after bringing a little something different, because that the the main markers are going to be on the likes of Costello, Con O'Callaghan, and Kieran Kilkenny, assuming he's fit. But Pascal has brought a bit of dynamism and pace and finishing ability that I think might make him hugely important, because we often see this in big games, that the main men end up being shut down because they're targeted by the opposition's main shutdown merchants. So maybe it could be someone like Pascal.
Well, is he top scorer from playing this year's championship? I think he is, or he's right up there. Like, as regards importance, they're crying out for like a new face to really kind of take on maybe some of that scoring load, and he definitely has. I could not look beyond James McCarthy here though. To me, he's just the heartbeat of the team. Like, he was probably one of the ones really taking it to Mayo in that second half. Actually had quite a first half, but he is integral to everything that Dublin do, and particularly when they're motoring well, he's usually motoring well, be it centre back, wing back, or midfield. Whenever he steps aside, it'll be a sad day for football, and definitely for all the Dublin football faithful will be James McCarthy for me. And he can still control games, despite the fact, like, he started every final. He's the only one that started every final. Well, Cluxton has now as well. He's still around now, or he's back on the scene now as well. But I'm going to go with James McCarthy.
And then with Monaghan, and I agree with James McCarthy, but Manze for Monaghan, Conor McManus, he's just so clutch.
Manze, well, like, he's not starting games, but look at what he's doing off the bench. Like, look at what he's doing. Even he was just so ice cool for the 2 penalties in extra time the last day as well, and he was just hoping and wishing that he's not the one that misses or puts him out of the championship, but what maybe could be his last game. He's been crucially important. Conor McCarthy's been brilliant at wing back as well. I'm actually going to go with the other wing back, Carl O'Connell, who's 35. I think he's been re-energized this year. I remember watching the Tyrone game, just some of the plays he was making. He doesn't seem to have lost even a yard of pace. He would have been a really good athlete back in the day. He only took up football at 17, actually, even like club football. And look at where he is now. I think he's in pole position for an All-Star, and he just makes some of those lung busting runs that get them on the front foot, create a score for him or create a score for others. I'm going to go with Carl O'Connell.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking Gary Mohan's involvement the last day was huge. He scored 3 points. He made a great save. Somebody had a goal opportunity. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but he stopped a goal opportunity at one stage. And after missing the first penalty, he came back and scored a second one to finish the shootout. So he'd be in the conversation, but for me, it's Manze all day.